Hi everybody, Jessie here from jessiebanks.com, and I have a video for all to new. Today we're creating this simple rose gold, white, and black card using some fun products. We're starting off with the Beauty Within stamp set. I also have the rose gold wax and the rose gold embossing powder. I have the little spoon in order to melt your wax, as well as the Thanks wax steel. And I'm going to be using the all-to-new artist grade watercolors for today's project. We're actually just using the white one out of this, keeping things fairly simple. I'm starting off with some black paper here, and I'm going to dust this with some cornstarch in order to stop the embossing powder from sticking everywhere I don't want it to stick, and only adhering to what we've stamped. So we're going to kick things off with a flower here from the Beauty Within stamp set. And then I decided that I wanted some more solid leaves as well as spaces to watercolor, so I pulled out the wallpaper art stamp set, and we're going to use this fun little one 3 times on this card. So I'm stamping that out, and then I'm going to pull it out and go back to the acrylic block method. I just find with the Slimline cards, it makes it a little easier for me to put everything where I want it to be. So I'm going to stamp one more of those down at the bottom corner. Pulling out one more of the flower stamp sets from the Beauty Within set. We're going to add that one to the bottom near the middle. You'll see me flip it around here trying to decide which way is up for this stamp. And then we'll add one more of the leaves in the corner, and that'll finish off the stamping for this card. Once we have that all finished, we will pull out our embossing powder and start adding some color to this card. So I'm going to sprinkle the rose gold embossing powder all over the front of the card. That's the beauty of dusting it with cornstarch. It stops everything from sticking. And it's going to be so pretty once it's all metallic. I pull out my heat gun and I let that warm up so that it's nice and hot before we start embossing. And then I'm just slowly going to work it across the card. And you know when the embossing is done, when it turns bright and shiny. You don't want to overbake this stuff. So now that that's all finished, I'm going to load up on some white watercolor and we're going to get into this. So I'm going to start off with the leaves, and I'm just going to give everything a nice wash of the same amount of color. That gives you an idea of what it's going to look like on the black cardstock. What I really enjoy about using watercolors on this as opposed to an opaque medium is you can still see the black shine through, so it has a little bit of a gray tone, and it gives it a little bit of the appearance of shading without doing shading because I'm painting with white, if that makes any sense. You'll see it a little better when we get to actually painting up the flowers themselves. So I'm just filling in all of the leaves with a solid wash of the paint. Keeping it fairly watery, I dropped a bunch of water into the white watercolor pan just to make it super easy to pick up. I do enjoy that the all-to-new watercolors are super simple to re-wet. I don't have to fight with them to get them to do what I want to do. I'm definitely going to speed this up here. We're jumping from 2 times the original speed to 6, just so you don't have to watch me paint this for like an hour, because that's about what it took. So like I said, we're filling all of those in, and I really enjoy how you have the contrast of that rose gold to the stark black paper. And then we filled all of the images in with the white. I just find it very soft and pretty, and it looks classic to me. I love watercolors. They're one of my favorite mediums, and the all-to-new ones just seem to do everything I need them to do, so it makes me pretty happy. Once we get all of these filled in here, we'll jump on over to the flowers, and that's where you can really see how you can create the shading with the white on the black as opposed to just getting a solid color on it like I have been with the leaves here. Like I said, this card took me about an hour and a half to 2 hours to complete in real time. That's with letting everything dry and all of that fun stuff. So once we get onto the flowers here, I'm starting with a more concentrated amount in my brush, and I'm going to lay that in right next to the stamens of the flowers, so right near the middle there. And then I'll rinse off my brush a little bit and we'll start to blend that out. And you can see how it goes from the more white in the center to a lighter gray tone around the edges. And I think it's really, really pretty, and it just kind of balanced everything out super nice. Being on the black paper here, we only needed 1 coat of color, which was awesome. I didn't have to go back and forth 100 times. It kept everything really, really simple. And you can see how nice and easy that blended out. Once I put that solid color right near the center and just cleaned off my brush and pulled it out, it faded itself really, really beautifully with minimal effort, which is always fun when something works really simple and it doesn't take a lot of work to achieve a look that looks as though it took you a lot of time and a ton of layers on top of there. The paint will dry relatively fast. I'm not using a ton of water on here. My brush is barely damp. I have a rag off to the right hand side there that I'm just wiping my brush off all the time to make sure that I don't have too much water on my brush. I don't want to waterlog anything and create any blue. Now, if you were a person that would like more color in this as opposed to just the white, once this is dry, you could definitely go in with a light wash of any of the other colors from this palette just to give it a little bit of a tone. I think a little bit of a soft pink would be really pretty, maybe even some blue for something a little bit more non-traditional. It's kind of my thing. I like painting flowers in a non-traditional tone. But I found the white on the black was just genuinely a beautiful look by the time I was finished with it all. So once we get this last little bit of the petals done, we're going to jump in and add a little bit more depth into those leaves. I will go back over top of them with a little more concentrated of white and just blend that out. So this is kind of like creating your shading like you would do with your markers, or if you were painting on white, like on traditional watercolor paper with just standard colors. I'm going back into the deep of the leaves there where the shadows would be, and I'm adding a little bit more white, and then I'm blending that out. And we're just going to finish that across again, all of the flowers or all of the leaves, in order to give them a little bit more depth to it. It doesn't make a drastic difference, but I find the details matter when I create cards, and I just really enjoy adding those extra little touches and taking those few extra moments to get the colors and the look that I'm after to be exactly the way I want, because I guess I'm fussy. So once we're done with that here, I'm going to pull out a little bit of white string. This is just out of my stash, and I'm going to wrap it around the card just to add a little bit more detail and a little bit more white to the card. I'm going to go from the top right-hand corner to the bottom left-hand side just for a little bit of difference. I have a little bit of double-sided tape on the back of that just to hold that in place so that it doesn't move on me and it secures it. Then I'm going to pull out the wax seals, and we're going to have some fun by melting some wax on top of this card. I was super nervous for this. I'm like, if I ruin this card, I'm going to be very upset with myself. But it worked out beautifully. So I take the little spoon here and I put a little dot on the top of the wax seal is what I was showing you, just to know which way was up, especially because it was like the thanks and I didn't want it upside down. I didn't have a little tea light, but I had this candle in somewhere upstairs. I'm not sure why. I don't normally burn candles, but it worked out perfect. So I melted up all of that wax, and then I'm going to dump it on top of the string, and I'm placing that on top. It's by no means perfect, and I kind of love that. I just let the wax seal sit there for a few moments until the wax was completely dry, and then we break it loose, and there's the thanks. I think it turned out absolutely beautiful, and I love that it's an imperfect wax seal. So I have a top folding card here that measures 3.5 high by 8.5 long. I've added double-sided adhesive to the back of our card front, and I'm going to tape that right on the front, and that's it for today's card, you guys. Thank you for spending some of your time with me today. Definitely hop on over to the Altenew store to pick up some of these goodies for yourself. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe for more Altenew inspiration. Have a great day. Bye for now.